back again to do a reading update. I think that doing that tag the other day put me in the mood to make some booktube videos because I suddenly have the urge to talk about the books I've read, which actually haven't read that many since my last update, because I've actually been watching some TV series, which is not a thing that I normally do, or at least not a thing I do very often. But Heartstopper came out in early May, and I've watched that several times. I really, really like it. And then also I've been watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which I've really been enjoying. But I have realized that I'm a little rusty on my original Star Trek lore, so I am also rewatching the original Star Trek episodes. So that has cut into my reading time quite a bit. However, I did manage to get a handful of books in. One book that I read was The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. And something I really like about this edition I purchased is it has beautiful cover art. I love the art on the dust jacket, but the art is also on the book itself. So I really, really like it when books do this. I wish more of them did. So I think everybody probably knows what this is about. They've either read the book or seen the movie, but just in case, it is a hard-boiled detective story about a private investigator who is helping a woman track down a stolen statue of a falcon. And I thought this book was an awful lot of fun. Now, it is full of misogyny and homophobia, and there's some anti-Semitism happening, but it was written in the 1920s, so you kind of have to just like set that aside and carry on, and just keeping the book within context is important here. And this book was so much fun. I loved the characters, and I liked the way the book was written. There were such wonderful descriptions in here. I'm going to try to do an individual video for this book. I know I've said that before, like I say that a lot, but I just kind of have to do these things when the mood strikes me. But anyways, yeah, I would highly recommend this. If you are able to set aside all of the social prejudice, then this is a very, very fun read. Another book I read is The Conspiracy Against the Human Race by Thomas Ligotti. And I don't mind saying that this book is absolute crap, quite frankly, in my opinion. This author is trying to make the case that life is completely and totally meaningless, and that if you believe in any kind of meaning or have any kind of optimism, that you are buying into some kind of lie. And he fails to make his case, in my opinion. Mostly what he has done in this book is he has taken large segments of various philosophers' writings and then repeating what they have said in a different way. And he does it over and over. He doesn't just write a paragraph or two, like he'll write pages and say the exact same thing over and over and over again and just rewording it. He talks in so many circles, I was getting dizzy. It's crazy. And usually I take away something from books like this, but the only thing I took away from this book was this author knows some big words and he owns a thesaurus. That was my takeaway from this book. I do not recommend this to anyone. Another book I read was Sphere by Michael Crichton. I buddy read this with Scott Bryant for the Cosmic Horror Week, for Murder Mayhem. And I was very, very excited to read this book. I have never read anything by Michael Crichton. And I did see the movie Sphere a long time ago, and I remember really liking it. So I was very excited to read the book. However, I was terribly, terribly disappointed. This book actually made me quite angry, and the more I read it, the more angry I got. I almost DNF'd it. It's full of misogyny. And it's too new to have this level of misogyny. Normally, if a book is old, I can just set that stuff aside and carry on, keep it within context. I mean, he was blaming women for their rapes in this book. There were women in positions of responsibility, but all of those women were overly emotional, were not able to maintain their professionalism, and were incompetent at their job. Every woman, every single one of them. There was a lot of narration that were attributing the failures of these women to the fact that they were women. He was describing in detail the physical appearance of every woman, and I mean to the extent that they find a dead woman. She's been dead so long she's mummified, and They are literally describing how great her breasts are. She is a mummified corpse, and they're describing how great her breasts are and how great her body is. I was just so mad. There's also racism. There's a black character, and there were things about the black character that were happening that were being attributed to the fact that he was a black man. And I've never heard anybody talk about Michael Crichton writing in this way. So I don't know if this is if this is a thing in all of his books or not. I do have 3 more novels by him. I don't know if I want to read them. I think I will read at least one other, maybe the Andromeda Strain, to see how I feel, but I don't think I'm going to want to read Michael Crichton anymore. You know, the good thing that I do have to say about this is the story was decent. It was a decent story. I did like the horror elements that were included here. That part was fine, but wow, I was really shocked and quite disappointed. I actually felt a little bit betrayed because Michael Crichton is so well loved. I just didn't expect any of that in this book. Another book I read was The Ghost and Mrs Muir by R.A. Dick. This was a buddy read with Shawn Standfast. This book was the basis for a movie, a really old black and white movie that I watched when I was a kid and just absolutely loved. I loved the movie so much. I didn't realize it had been based on a book. So when I found out it was, I decided I really wanted to read it, and the book is amazing. This book is incredible. If you're not familiar, Mrs. Muir is a widow who moves into a house that is being haunted by its previous owner, and the previous owner was a sea captain. And they become friends and they write a book together, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful story, and it was very, very well written. Then I saw another YouTuber talking about the fact that he had read the Ghostbumps the Goosebumps books when he was a kid. Now, I was too old for the Goosebumps books. By the time they came along, I was already an adult, and my son didn't read them either. Hi, baby kitty. How's my boy? Where's my baby? But when he talked about them, it did make me curious. So I picked up some and read them. And I actually did do like a reading vlog while I was reading these. And I will have that linked in the description. And I'll put the little linky box up here in the screen. I don't know which side on. Wherever it is, it'll be on the screen somewhere. The first one I read was Cry of the Cat, which was about a girl who's being hunted by a cat. And then I read Night of the Werewolf, which was about a girl who turns Night of the Werewolf, Night of the Werecat, which is about a girl who turns into a werecat. And then this book contains the story Fright Night, which is about a little boy who has to contend with a haunted suit of medieval. Sorry, I have a cold and my nose is really stuffy. It's making it difficult for me to talk. He has to contend with a haunted suit of medieval armor. And then The Ooze, which is about a little boy who accidentally creates an alien that is like a blob type of alien who takes away a person's intelligence whenever they come into contact with it. And then this one contains Revenge of the Shadow People, which was about some shadow creatures that force children's souls from their bodies, and then they have to exist as shadow creatures, and the little boy who is targeted. And then The Bugman Lives, which is about a man who loved bugs so much that he turned himself into a bug and is trying to turn the little girl in the story into a bug as well. None of these books are well written. They have a particular outline that they are following, and it's not a good outline. However, the premises for these stories is a lot of fun, and it very much feels like you're sitting around a campfire and somebody is telling you a story and making it up as they go along. And I really, really enjoyed that feel. So yeah, so I liked them. And I actually did buy some more to read on occasion. And I also read The Forgotten Island by David Sodergren. This is a horror story about 2 sisters who are vacationing in Thailand, and they end up on this island which is inhabited by murderous ancient creatures. There's a lot of blood and guts and nudity and sex in this book, and I didn't care for it. Probably somebody whose go-to genre is horror this is probably a fun read for them, but it's definitely not my cup of tea. I also read Hide by Kirsten White. This is an author I have read before. I read her book called The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, which is a pastiche novel, and which I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was absolutely marvelous, except for the ending. I didn't care for the ending, but the rest of the book was fantastic. It was so good. So I was really looking forward to reading this. It's a thriller about some 20-somethings who are participating in a contest for a lot of money where they have to hide in this abandoned amusement park. And the last person to be found is the winner. However, the contestants start dying. And that's all I should say about it. So, thriller, we don't want any spoilers. But I really enjoyed the setting of this book. And I enjoyed the background regarding the contest. However, I didn't care for this book. It reads like YA, and YA is not a genre that I enjoy, and it's marketed as an adult book. So I didn't care for it. I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like some of the things that happened in the book, and I absolutely hated the YA feel of it. So unfortunately, this was not a book for me, but I do think there are a lot of people who will enjoy this. And then I read Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. I thought this was going to be like a cross-country sort of adventure, like maybe somebody on like on a fun crime spree across the country, like Thelma and Louise or something like that. That's not what this is at all. I only read 71 pages of this book and I had to DNF it. It has a lot of elements that I don't care for. It is set in the South, and just as a general rule, I don't like the South as a setting. There's also a lot of talk about cars and street racing. I don't care for any of that either. And then the character was making very bad choices. He was an ex-criminal who got his life completely straightened out, owned his own business, married, has a couple kids, but he finds himself in a financial bind and his business is in danger of closing. And so he decides that he's going to commit a crime with other people who are complete idiots. And I just felt like this character is dumb. He's making a lot of really poor decisions when he had options. He has options and he's not taking the other options. He's just going straight to committing a crime. And not only just committing a crime, but committing a crime with people who are dumb. So I couldn't read it. I was just not enjoying it in any way. There was absolutely nothing about this that I was enjoying at all. So unfortunately, I had to DNF this one. Let's see. And then I read a couple of Kindle books. I read The Tarnsman of Gore by John Norman. This was actually a reread for me. I did reread this towards the end of 2021, and I did like it, but when I went into it, I didn't expect to like it. So I was kind of rushing through it until I got a little over halfway through the book. And then I was like, hey, I think I should pay more attention to this. So I did slow down at that point, but I thought I wanted to reread it so that I could take my time with it from the beginning. And I'm so glad that I did. This book is surprisingly well written. The world building is phenomenal. I really rank it really high on the fantasy scale. Now it does have, women in servitude to men and being tied up and stuff, but there's not sex in it. I think there's like one sex scene, but they don't go into any details about the sex or anything. So it's not like it's some gratuitous sex book or anything like that. It's just the setting of the book, and it was fabulous. The world is fantastic. The social system is fantastic. The religious system was interesting. It felt like this author took a lot of time to plan out everything about his world, that's the hallmark of having a good fantasy series. And I was so impressed. It was so good. And if you can handle women being in a position of servitude to men and them being tied up a lot, read it. I was really impressed. I was really, really impressed. It was so good. Okay, and then I read Pink is Not a Color by Lindsay Ward, which is a children's book that I got from like the Amazon Prime first reads choices. And I didn't really care for it. It was all about the color pink, feeling like they were not, since they were not part of the rainbow, that they were not a real color. And pink does some exploring to try to figure out their place in the world and in the color spectrum. And I understand what the author was going for, which in it was admirable, but I just didn't like the way it was done. And I didn't think it was an appealing children's book. It's not one, if my son were little, it's not one that I would purchase for him. Oh, and then I'll talk about what I'm currently reading. So right now I'm reading Blood Rights by Jim Butcher, which is number 6 in the Dresden Files. I'm really enjoying that. I'm just over halfway through it. It's fantastic. I'm doing the audiobook and the Kindle at the same time. So far, all of these books have been 4-star reads for me. So I really like the Dresden Files. And then I'm also reading The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is a buddy read with my friend Belle. I'm only 33 pages in, but I'm really enjoying this so far. I'm really liking it. I'm hoping to have this. Oh, I guess I should probably talk about say what it's about, right? So I picked this one up because I had read the synopsis for Mexican Gothic, but I was real iffy about whether or not I'd like it. It just didn't quite tick for me. This one did. This one sounded really, really good. And of course, it is a possibly haunted house story about this woman who marries a widowed man, and his hacienda could potentially be haunted. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this one, and the 33 pages I've read, I've really enjoyed. So Michael K. Vaughan is doing June on the Range this month, and I'm not a Westerns reader. I don't really like Westerns anything pretty much, but because he's doing this event, I thought that I would reread True Grit. I read this when I was real young. I think I was in like late elementary school or maybe junior high, and I remember really, really liking it. So, and it's not a long book, so I thought I would reread this for June on the Range. And then June is also Pride Month. Pride Month. So I thought that I would read Proud by Gareth Thomas, which is an autobiography about a British rugby player. And this sounds like it's going to be really good. So I'm really looking forward to this one. And this one, I don't know if I will finish it this month, but I certainly will be able to start it. And it's At Swim Two Boys by Jamie O'Neill. I actually saw Steve Donahue talk about this on his channel, and I really have wanted to read it ever since. So I've had this sitting around for a year or so and just haven't got to it. So I thought Pride Month would be a good time to give it a try. So that is my reading update, and I'll call that the end of the video.